Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel for another first impressions. Today I'm going to be first impressioning, doing a first impressions of the Oden's Eye Norn's palette. I bought this when I bought the Hella palette a while ago. When was that? In February, perhaps? Yeah, and this was the only Oden's Eye palette for a long time that caught my eye, or that I really was interested in, and so when I bought the Hella palette, I decided to just go ahead and get this palette as well in my order. This is one of the only Oden's Eye palettes prior to the legendary Diversa collection that released that had deeper shades, so for that reason, this is kind of the one that drew me to it, that I was drawn to. And it looks like it has some really beautiful shimmers as well. I will say, I just want to, it's been on my mind, I've been thinking a lot about it, and I do think Oden's Eye needs to improve on their, number one, swatches, because I talked about this before, but their swatches that they post on the website go like medium to deep, or they go like medium deep, but they don't really have swatches of their products on deep skin tones, and I think that's absolutely something that they need to include. And especially with their new Salmon 2 collection that's coming out, a lot of their face products don't look like they're going to work for deeper skin tones, but they don't really have those swatches available for people to reference to see how they would look on deeper skin tones in the first place. So I do just want to like kind of put that out there about the brand. I'm still a little bit undecided as to whether I'm going to get the Salmon 2 palette, but today is not necessarily about that. It's about the Norn's palette. So I'm really curious. I've heard people say that the formula is different in this palette or in like previous palettes to the legendary Diversa collection, which is only what I've tried from Oden's Eye. So I'm just really curious to see how these shadows perform, honestly. First though, I'm going to quickly go and film like the close-ups for this palette, and then before I swatch it, and then I will come back and live swatch it. If I'm in a different place, that's why. Let's live swatch this baby. Okay, so the first shade to swatch is the shade Dazed, which is a really interesting, it's almost like a beige with like a green undertone. It's a matte. Yeah, it's like a really light beigey green. It's very light because I definitely have to build it up, and my arm is basically white. So then we have the shade Pink Chameleon, which I'm not sure if this is supposed to be a multi-chrome. It's like a pink to green at least shade with golds. Maybe it is supposed to be a multi-chrome. It feels similar to the other multi-chrome formulas that I've tried from them in their palettes. Next is the shade Realism, which is like a satin chocolate brown, basically. It's definitely not like a very strong metallic. It definitely feels like a satin. And the last shade in this row is the shade Amber Palace, which is like a marbled shimmer. It feels like they're sparkly textured shadows, and it basically swatches like a gold with a whole bunch of silver sparkle running through it. The shade Mist is next. It's a mid-toned matte. Well, mid-tone is maybe generous. A light, like mauve-y purple. Then we have the shade Optimism, which is a shimmer. This looks like one of the more sparkly shimmers. This is a lilac purple with gold sparkle. The shimmers have been nice so far that I've tried, swatched. Then we have the shade Passion, which is another satin shade. It's a red, a satin red. Interesting. And then the shade Green Chameleon is a metallic green, which looks really beautiful actually. It's very bright, has a limey, like sparkle or shine to it, but definitely has more of a base than these other shimmers that I've swatched so far. And then into the third row, there's the shade Obsessed, which is interesting. This almost feels like a satin, but it has more like shimmer to it, so it's a more shiny. It's a like warm toned purple with silver, or no, not silver, like cool toned purple sparkles. So it's not necessarily a metallic, it's more of like a satin with sparkles in it, which is interesting. Definitely a lot of different textures in this palette. The shade Pragmatism is a matte brown, like neutral brown. It's pretty deep. The shade Colourful Black, which is an interesting name, is a black. It's kind of a satin, but not really. It has maybe a little bit of a sheen to it, but it has less shimmer than I expected based on the way it looks in the pan. Then the shade Outsider is a matte teal. This is a fucking weird color story. I gotta say, like every shade I swatch is just more and more confusing to me. Then we have the last row, which is all shimmers that look really beautiful. So this is the shade Hallucination, which is a, ooh, that's pretty. This is a grassy green with a blue, bright blue shift. The shade Self is a purple with a green shift or shine to it. That's really beautiful. The shade Glamour is a beautiful metallic orange. And lastly, we have the shade Charming, which is a like blue purple shade. Really beautiful. These last four shades are absolutely stunning. An interesting palette. It's like colorful, neutral. There's lots of different textures. We have mattes, we have satins, we have sparkly sheer shades. We have sparkly shades that are a little bit more opaque. This shade is like a satin with glitter in it, or like sparkle. And then these are like really shimmery, shifty shades. So interesting for sure. I'm going to have to give it a think in terms of what I'm going to do with this palette. And then I'll just do a look, I guess. fucking go. So I'm going to begin with the shade Colourful Black. We're just gonna go right into it. This is kind of my first instinct in terms of what to do when I look at the palette, so I'm really curious as to how this black is gonna work to deepen up shades, because it's actually less satin and less shiny than I thought it was going to be when I first, looked at it in the pan and looked at it online and stuff. So I'm just gonna I'm just gonna stamp this on my lid, just in like my outer corner and through my crease. I don't really feel like doing a halo eye today. So I'm just gonna kind of see how this goes, honestly. And I've primed my eyes using the NARS Smudge Proof eyeshadow base as usual, and I have not set my lids. It maybe has a slight sheen to it, but really I think it works absolutely fine as a deepening shade. Okay, it worked, it stamped. It stamped totally fine, I had no issues. We're not looking super even, but that's fine. Now I'm gonna take the shade Outsider, which is this matte teal, and I'm just gonna take this and blend this pretty much directly over the black. Blend it over the black and then use this to blend the black out. This is typically what I do when I use black as a base. I just go over the shadow and then use this other shade to blend it out. And I'll go in with a lighter shade again as well, just to blend it out a little bit more. Now I'm just taking a clean brush and blending the edges out. This teal was actually quite pigmented and easy to blend and stuff. It's a little bit crazy looking now, but I will tone it down a tad. And then I'm gonna take the shade Dazed, which is this interesting green at the top here, and I'm just going to use this to blend the edges out even further, make everything nice and diffused. Lovely. The only thing I'm gonna do now is, so now I'm going to just take a little bit of the shade, oh my god, I feel like also Oden's eye shades are always so hard to read on their palettes. The shade Outsider mixed with like a tiny touch of Colourful Black, and just use this to kind of help diffuse this out, this deep depth out even a little bit more. But otherwise, I'm happy with this crease. Honestly, the shades are blending super well. I feel like my expectations were really low for this palette in a way, just because I feel like I've heard people say that their older palettes aren't as good. These three shades thus far are fine. And I'm a little bit distracted today, so I'm really not even paying that much attention. Okay, so for my lid, there's a myriad of different options, but I gotta go with, let's see. So I'm going to take, first, I think I'm going to take the shade Hallucination, because I feel like this is the prettiest shade in the palette, honestly. I might take this in the center of my lid and then take Green Chameleon in the front part. Yeah. Or should I do Hallucination and Charming? Actually, I take it all back. I'm going to take Hallucination . I'm going to take Charming in the middle part and Hallucination in the front part. I'm pretty sure. First, I'm going to take some NYX Glitter Primer and put this all over just basically all over my lid. Okay, so now I'm going to take Charming. Oh, I'm really excited. These shimmers look so pretty. Oh my god. You guys. Okay. I feel like most people that I say or hear say when they talk about this palette is like, oh, this palette is worth it just for this bottom row of shades. And I kind of get what they're saying, because They really are beautiful. And now I'm gonna take Hallucination, which is the shade I'm most excited about. Oh my god. Oh, you guys, look at that. That's like mermaid skin on my eyelid right now. Oh, this is so beautiful. Okay, I'm just gonna quickly hop off camera. I'm just gonna fucking do this on my other eye, okay? And I'll be right back. Oh my god, I feel just beautiful. So I'm just gonna merge a little bit of Outsider into the shade that I have here, which is called Charming. I cannot read these friggin' names. Okay, beautiful. And then I'm gonna take, again, that little mixture of Outsider and Colourful Black and deepen my outer corner one more time. And run this over the front edge of my crease, just also using this to blend these shimmers out because I don't want them to be super harsh. And now, oh, I'm so excited for this. Am I filming? Yes. I'm gonna take Charming and Hallucination on my finger. So Charming feels a little bit looser, and Hallucination feels a little bit more tightly, like more thick almost to the touch. Just comparing the two textures, but I'm just going to intensify these on my lid. Not, honestly, they don't need it. I just want to do this. I mean, oh. I know I'm being dramatic, but like I'm kind of not. Glorious. So I think for my lower lash line, surprise, surprise, I'm going to keep it pretty the same. I'm going to keep it the same. I'm going to take Colourful Black and just, actually I'm going to take a smaller pencil brush, but I'm going to take Colourful Black and just smudge this all underneath my eyes. Okay, and I'm going to take Outsider and just blend this over the black and out. I promise it will hopefully look good in the end. Okay. And then I'm going to take Dazed, which was that lighter green, and then blend this out with that shade as well. So now I'm going to take the shade Green Chameleon that I thought I was going to put on my lid, but I didn't. I'm going to put this on the inner part of my lower lash line, just bring a different tone of green in. This is really pretty as well. It's not quite as dynamic as the other shades, but it's still really nice and sparkly. And then I really wanted to take Pink Chameleon, but I just absolutely do not think it's gonna work at all. So I'm going to take Amber Palace. It has actually a lot of white to it in the base of the shadow. So I think it could work for an inner corner highlight. I'm going to just take this. This is definitely like already hard panned almost with like one swatch. It has that kind of like texture. So sorry, I just keep checking to make sure that my camera's still recording. It keeps cutting out on me. But I'm just going to spray that and then put this on my inner corner just to see how it looks. Yeah, it's a little bit almost gray in a way when you like have all the colors together. Or like not gray, but it's like almost like a dirtier gold. So it doesn't really work that well for me to use as an inner corner highlight. So I'm just gonna do this, but I'll probably just go over it with my face highlighter when I do that step. Yeah, it's definitely just a little bit too dark. But if you have a deeper skin tone, it could probably work as an inner corner highlight for you. Just not really for me. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it there. I'm super pleasantly surprised with how this went. I'm just gonna finish up the rest of my face and I'll give you my initial thoughts on the palette. Okay, and this is the finished look. I really am so pleasantly surprised by it. Honestly, I wasn't expecting to necessarily love the look that I did with this palette, so I'm super happy about that. On my lips, I have the NYX lip liner in Nude Truffle. Let me grab it. And the Merit Signature Lip Lightweight Lipstick in the shade 1990. I actually meant to use the shade Slip instead, but 1990 is the one I put on, so I mean, it doesn't look bad, so I can't really complain. But yeah, my first impressions of this palette are that the color story, when I looked at it and swatched it, especially when I swatched it, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, how am I gonna absolutely create a look with this? So perplexed. And then once I started to use it, I, you know, kind of got into it, and the shadows performed beautifully. Like, I found they blended really well. Like, I honestly had no issues with them. They were pretty mindless to use in the sense that they kind of just like went on as I would expect a shadow to perform, and I had no problems. So I think the shimmers in this palette are standout. Are these standout? Like I think the shimmers in this palette are the like kind of standout part. The mattes are fine, at least the mattes that I tried were fine, but the shimmers are really beautiful. There's a ton of different textures in here. Like this is a different texture, this multi-chrome. This is kind of like its own sparkly topper. This is more of just like a regular metallic that's has a little bit of sparkle to it. This, like I said, is like a satin with sparkle, which is like the best way I can describe it. This is like kind of a sparkly metallic that's kind of, I feel like, in between this formula and like this bottom formula, and even within this bottom formula, like the shade that I have on part of my eyes, Hallucination, feels a little bit thicker compared to Charming and Self and Glamour down here. So there's a satin, like two satins here, so it's kind of all over the place in terms of texture, which is fun, I think. It's definitely a challenging palette, but like a fun challenging palette, and I don't actually regret picking this up. I think it's quite fun, and the metallics are so beautiful, so I'm excited to play with it more. I will definitely add it to my list of palettes to do a 3 looks 1 palette with for sure. That will be coming eventually. Hopefully this video was helpful if you are planning to make an order from them or pick up the Solmon collection and you were still wondering about this palette. I know it's been out for a long time, but I've been interested in it, so I obviously bought it a little while ago. Undecided as to whether I'm gonna break my no buy, first of all, and buy the Solmon 2 palette, but also just like kind of taking stock of Oden's Eye as a brand. I think that they definitely have made strides to make their eyeshadow palettes more inclusive in terms of color selection and depth. But I'm still definitely disappointed by their shade range and their blushes and highlighters and their lack of swatches on deeper skin tones, and their lack of sending PR, it seems, to creators of deeper skin tones. So that's kind of where I'm at. Not entirely sure. Let me know what you guys think about the brand, about the new palette, about this palette, and all that good stuff. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've made it this far, I really honestly do appreciate it. If you want to stick around, I upload 3, sometimes 4 videos a week, and I would love to have you around again. And I would love to see you in my next video. Bye!